Hey guys, in today's video I'm wanting to talk about wave makers, power heads and the importance of surface agitation in your home aquarium. If you're new here, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you're wanting to follow along my fish keeping journey, I like to keep things as basic, as simple as possible. I don't use all the fancy equipment, well not yet anyway, maybe one day I will, but my hope in having this channel is to help inspire people to give maybe harder fish a go, to give saltwater keeping a go using just basic equipment. So if that's something that interests you, don't forget to subscribe. And as always, a massive thank you to all my subscribers who have been following me along and all your support. It's awesome. Don't forget also, I am on Instagram. If you'd like daily updates from me, don't forget to go and follow me there. I'll leave the link down in the comments for you. So getting straight into it, I know this is a bit of a boring topic, but I feel like it's an important one and something that may be overlooked by accident. And hopefully in this video I can show you just a few adjustments that you can make, just simple little adjustments or little purchases that you can make to help create surface agitation in your tank. I'll say as a bit of a disclaimer that make sure that you go and find out what your individual fish like regarding a flow in the tank. Some fish don't like flow at all, or some fish really like turbulent flow. So before you go and chuck 3 wave makers in your tank, make sure you do your research on your fish, and because yeah, that might not be what they like. So I hope you can get something out of this video on, I guess, the principle behind surface agitation, as there is a good majority of fish that really benefit from surface agitation. So I'll start with saying what surface agitation is. It's basically movement of the water. And what it does is it's helping with the gas exchange of the O2 levels and the CO2 levels coming out of the water. So basically, you've got your surface area of your tank. So let's say I didn't have any power heads in here, it would be just purely the size of the tank, the surface area that's on the tank. By adding a power head in, or by adding surface agitation, you're actually increasing the surface level of your tank. Give you a bit of a visual on what I mean with surface agitation and how it actually creates a greater surface for your tank. I'll give you the example of a wave that you have in the ocean. I'm going to totally freak my fish out by doing this. But let's just go with the example of a wave. So we've got your wave here, and then we've got a flat, flat lake here that's got 0 surface agitation, no waves, no rippling. So ordinarily, without this wave, you would have only that amount of surface level, and you've got your oxygen trying to come in through here, and your CO2 trying to make that gas exchange through here. Whereas up here, you've got that whole level, but you also have all of this area in here and all of this area throughout this whole ripple wave thing, whatever you want to call it. You've got all of this extra area as well for this gas exchange to be happening, as opposed to just if it was just that amount there. You've got this whole extra area here where you're getting that gas exchange happening, and having that rippling and the water movement actually makes it easier for that to happen, as opposed to a flat surface where it struggles to sort of penetrate the water here. You've got that more fluid way for the oxygen and the CO2 to do their gas exchange here. So I hope that sort of excuse my bad drawing, but I hope that sort of helps to give you a bit of a visual on how it affects. Obviously we don't have huge waves in our home aquariums, but it's adding that oxygen into the water and providing that life and much needed oxygen for the fish and plants and coral if it's in salt water, and all of that sort of stuff into the tank. I'll show you this. So here I've got one of my wave makers, and as you can see on the surface, it's creating all those ripples across the top of the water. And if you have a look here, you can see how it's, you know, spurting the water sort of out of the water, and that's, you know, from all of those angles, you're going to be having that oxygen and CO2 exchange happening all across the surface of the water. So it's going to just create a greater surface area across the whole top of the water, because all of those ripples are adding to the surface area. And I've got another one over on that side. So with the two of them, it's creating a nice area up the top. If you see your fish gasping for air, or they look like they're really struggling to get breaths in, then that's a really good sign that you need to add some surface agitation into your tank. And also, by adding oxygen or increasing the oxygen levels getting into your tank, it can actually increase the amount of fish that you can have in your tank, because you're providing them with extra oxygen. Whereas if you cram in a whole bunch of fish with hardly any oxygen source, then obviously you're not going to be able to have as many fish in your tank as well. Another thing to note is the warmer the water that you keep, the more oxygen you're going to need, because the heat actually depletes the oxygen levels in the water. So if you have tropical fish or any sort of heated or, you know, fish that need to be kept at a higher temperature, I used to keep discus and they needed to be kept at about 30 degrees. So I really needed to make sure I had good surface agitation for them. When I first got my discus, I actually didn't realise about surface agitation, and it took me a while to realise that they were all gasping for air or trying to get air, because you're keeping it at such a higher temperature than normal fish. And yeah, as soon as I put some surface agitation into their tank, they were so much happier, and they, you know, you could tell that their breathing had, you know, they were breathing with a lot more ease than they were before. So if you can see your fish, you know, gasping for air, that's a really good sign that you need to add surface agitation in and help them get oxygen into the tank as soon as possible. If you're adding CO2 into your tank, then surface agitation is probably not your friend, because that's going to be, you know, making that gas exchange quicker. So if you're dosing CO2 or anything like that, this video is probably not for you, because you don't want it, you know, you want to keep it in as much as possible. But if you aren't, and you've just got, you know, fish and stuff like that, it's really, really important to have that. In a lot of places in the wild, you know, in the ocean, you've got your waves, which are constantly adding oxygen into the water. Yeah, it's just something to think about, and you can make some really simple adjustments to add that surface agitation into your water. I quite often see people with power heads doing this. So they'll have their power heads, but they'll have them facing just down into the tank. So it's like just going out like that. But if they just tilted it up towards the top of the tank, you got surface agitation. So yeah, quite a lot of people just put it straight down, but yeah, if you do that, you're adding all this oxygen to the water and creating a really nice rippling effect. Also, if you've got your power heads where your filter outlet is coming from, you can always get attachments to make it, you know, go across the top of the water, so you're creating that surface agitation. That's a really good way as well to add that surface agitation. I bought these wave makers off eBay for like 20 bucks or something, so it doesn't have to be expensive. You don't have to have a special type of wave makers. I just bought them, yeah, for super cheap, and as you can see, they do a really good job. A good rule of thumb is that you place the power head or the wave maker on the same side as your filter intake. So let's just say this tank wasn't this big, and let's say it ended about here. If we put, but I've got my power head over this side, and I've also got my filter intake over this side. If I put the power head here, it's gonna come across here, bounce off this, and then go down like that into the filter intake. So quite often people put, you know, their power head on the opposite side, but if you put it on the same side, I mean, you have to look at your tank and have a real play around with this, but you can actually make cleaning so much easier for you, and have the debris off the bottom being put straight into your intake of your filter. I mean, it doesn't work in every tank. In this tank, I've actually got 2 power heads, and because it's so big, I've kind of got a bit of a, you know, this sort of action going. It still does take everything out to the side. I've got a filter intake on this side as well. So it really does take a bit of playing around, but generally speaking, if you have your filter intake and power head on the same side, it'll usually take it straight across into your filter intake, which will make cleaning so much easier. Another way you can position them is at the back of the tank, bouncing off the front of the glass. As I said, you just got to play around with your particular tank because every tank's different. But yeah, I guess the rule of thumb is to try your best to have it the flow of the water going in such a way that it encourages any debris or poop to go straight to your filter intake. If you're not too sure which way your flow is going to go, a good way to check is when you're feeding you know, a lightweight sort of food, you can see which way it goes in the tank and which way it flows in the tank. So that's a way of checking if you're not too sure what your flow is going to be doing. And once you see that, you can see, you know, if it's picking up the debris off the bottom, and if you're happy with the flow, if you've not got enough power heads or, you know, wave makers to achieve what you're wanting in your tank. Great thing about power heads or wave makers is that they can get rid of any sort of oily film that you can get on the top of the surface. I mean, yeah, it just makes the surface look really, really nice as well. And I love the rippling effect that you get throughout the whole tank. It's really nice. Obviously, if you've got saltwater tanks, your flow is really important as to, you know, the placement of your corals and everything like that. And surface agitation is just one of those things that you really need in a saltwater tank. Obviously in the wild, you've got your waves, that's creating that extra oxygen into the water all the time. So if you've got a saltwater tank, I highly recommend that you make sure that your filter power heads are, you know, creating some surface agitation, or you've got a wave maker or 2 in there that are faced up towards the surface of the water to create that oxygen into the water. It's just some simple changes that you can make to adding that extra oxygen into the water for them. So I hope this video's helped in some sort of way today. And yeah, if you are new to my channel and you're interested in, you know, following along my journey, if you haven't watched any of my videos before, I try to keep things as simple as possible. I definitely don't do things by the book, but if you're interested in following along, I'm trying to show how you can, you know, have a saltwater tank without all the fancy equipment and all that sort of stuff. So if that's something you'd like to follow along with, don't forget to subscribe. And also follow me on Instagram for daily updates on all my tanks. So yeah, that'll be awesome. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.